Hey guys, Board now back with you. On this video, I'm going to be talking about from Season 2, Episode 8. It is called Forest for the Trees. Full spoilers from the start of the review, as always, as we build up to the end of the season now. This is mostly a setup episode. You can see it like laying the table for what's going to be like the big storylines coming into the end of the season. But it's another pretty solid episode, I've got to say. Like, there's two main storylines that sort of split between the two, and they're both pretty solid, and there's some intriguing things going on in both. So just picking it up with the Boyd and Kenny, that group, following on from the previous episode. Kenny now is starting to have visions of his own. He starts seeing, well, he hears the music box and he also hears some moths, hears some moths, sees some moths as well, but it turns out it's all part of his vision. He's having a bit of a freak out over it. He tells Boyd about this later on, and they start coming to the conclusion, and they've all like kind of started having this thing and hearing the music box, hearing the moths as well. Could be something similar to like the things that have latched themselves onto Boyd, or did latch themselves onto Boyd, which he now seems to have gotten rid of. But it seems pretty clear cut from what Marion says in this episode than what they're getting us in our dreams now. And so that becomes a thing by the end of the episode where they've decided then, like, it's happening to a lot of them, and if it's happening in their dreams, it means they can maybe get them. So that's going to be something they're going to be focusing on moving forward. But the other big thing, which is another nice use of Algin, who, as I said, is like a pretty strong newer character in this season, he Boyd hears about his like incident at the end of the last episode where he was clearly having a nightmare, but in the nightmare he almost drowned, and in reality it also led to him almost dying. But seeing the creatures again and having the similar thing with the music box, Boyd goes to talk to him about that because Donna tells him, and that's where Algin has this idea to like use silver bullets to try and capture one of these creatures, because they're starting to think about like capturing them now, like another one, so they can maybe experiment with the substance they got from the other one. And they're at this point thinking the substance is poison, so they could probably use that against like the remaining creatures. Yeah, so Boyd is telling Algin about the substance and what had been going down, and that's where he has that idea. It's like, yeah, why don't you dip like a bullet into it or something like that, and we can go and kill it and bring it back and do this whole thing. So I've got to say, I'm enjoying how proactive Algin is and how he's like contributing and wants to be a part of this group. So that's a good thing. They have that idea, and they set it in motion. Another small thing with Boyd is then he asks Donna to take on Sarah at the house, and partly because Sarah is still very like conflicted, still very tormented by her guilt, and is constantly saying, I can't really live here, I can't really deal with this anymore. And that's why Boyd asks Donna, and Donna like begrudgingly agrees, because it's in that scene where she says, we've got bigger problems, and then not Donna, Sarah just being bored. But that is a thing where Sarah gets like cautionally like brought over into like their house or somewhere nearby, and at one point Donna brings her some laundry. It's like, if you want to make yourself useful, here you go, you can fold all this laundry. But by the end of the episode, Boyd's group are like putting this plan in motion to try and go to the forest and like capture one of these things. And Boyd and Kenny go off to like destroy the body, because what starts to happen, and this is like the big horror moment of the episode, is then these moths start appearing from the body, and it's like similar to the moths they've all been seeing, and the body then at one point appears to disappear, or like it's like closed up or something. And as I said, these moths are appearing, and well, it's when Boyd tells Donna, and Donna comes down to have a look, and suddenly the moths have gone. So like covering their track. But that's when they have the idea just to destroy the body. But they're planning on setting this silver bullet thing in motion, because Boyd tells Kenny. Now the other big stuff is with Jimmy and Tabitha and that side of thing, because Jimmy is starting to work more with this character of Randall. And I've got to say, actually, in this episode, you see what they're doing with his character, because I think for a while I wasn't that interested, because he just seemed like another one-note douche, which they were kind of hitting you over the head a little bit with, and he wasn't that interesting to watch. I think the actor's pretty good, actually, but it's just the way the character was going. I wasn't that into what they were doing with him, but I think I sensed what they were doing this episode, and how it's actually quite an interesting thing to do, because when you hear some of the things he's coming out with in this episode, and how paranoid he is, and how he plants certain things in, like, well, Jimmy's head particularly, because Jimmy's in quite a fragile state of mind at this point and has a lot on his mind. But it's like, when you see what this guy is doing, I think the writers are definitely like trying to imply that he's almost like a very modern extremist sort of figure who likes to try and divide people and stir shit up, like very similar to certain people online, social media, and also in politics. So that seems to be the direction they've gone with this character, and it's very interesting. I mean, maybe he literally is just that paranoid and doesn't trust anybody. But in this, like, it does seem like he's going to extremes, and at times it does seem that he's planting stuff in Jimmy's head and being malicious. Because when they're trying to set up the drone, which he was flying about last time, because Jimmy has the idea to try and get the attention of whoever's watching, if there are people watching. That's Jimmy's whole thing. But when it doesn't quite work, like, Randall like says, well, what if it's someone within the group? And what's his, like, because then he even, like, this is what reminded me of some like modern like online like extremists or politicians, is the amount of like conspiracy theories, and just how far he went with some of what he was saying. Because at one point he says, well, have you actually seen any of these people die? Because Jimmy starts talking about when people have died, and it's like, well, have you actually seen that? And there's certain ones that he definitely says he hasn't seen, but then the one he says, well, I know for a fact that Ethan, like or Nathan, sorry, the brother of Sarah, like he definitely died, and there were witnesses, and Sarah obviously killed him, but then like Randall's even trying to explain that away. Say, well, was it really that could have been staged, or like maybe Sarah could have been put up to it by whoever's running the show? So he's constantly looking for an angle and trying to push conspiracy theory. So that's what reminded me. And he's like getting inside Jimmy's head, and like Jimmy's starting to question stuff itself. And actually, there's quite a nice little link to a scene with Jade in this, because him and Tabitha are continue to like talk about the stuff with Victor and that stuff. And there's actually a line from Jade where he's like wondering if like Victor might have set certain things up when it comes to these drawings. He's starting to like question that stuff. Not in the same way as the other characters, but it's just that you get a scene like that after like a scene with them. So that was pretty interesting. And so that was quite good stuff, and that just comes to a head later in the episode because like Jimmy starts putting this out there, like starts questioning different people. They both question, and you can tell them Jimmy is like sincere as he like normally is, and he's even though it's like misguided the way he's questioning people. Sarah being the key thing, because after what Randall says, they have the idea to go and talk to Sarah, and they start like probing her a little bit about her brother and the nature of his death and some of like just the past with him. And like what it amounts to is Jimmy's actually trying to be quite sensitive, and on the other hand Randall is just so reckless, like he's just getting frustrated, and he's just being like too aggressive, too sort of forward. And that's kind of the scene with Donna where she comes in and she interrupts, and she just sees what they're doing, so tells them to like get the fuck out of there basically, and gives Donna like the laundry. But also it sets Donna off, not Donna, sorry, Sarah. It sets Sarah off a little bit because like I think just because of her state of mind at time, like she starts having these thoughts about why are they questioning my brother dying, and it almost puts a conspiracy theory in her head. Then is the brother really dead? And that's when Donna has to sit her down and have a word with her, and it all builds to this big dramatic cliffhanger at the end of the episode because at one point, Randall goes off on his own and he overhears Boyd and the other group where they're talking about like the creature and stuff. And it's at the point where Donna has found out about it, and they decide to split into groups, two groups, and they decide because when they decide then like this thing can get us in our sleep, and that's what it's doing. They obviously make plans to split into two houses and stay in a different place. Like Boyd and Kenny and a couple of others are going off to the forest first to try and execute this plan. But they talk about like staying in different houses, and one thing Christy says is because at one point she's supposed to be in like the same house as Sarah. It's like, no, I can't be in the same house as Sarah. And then she asks Donna, how about staying in your house? And she's like, the more the merrier. And there's a nice little bit of comedy with like Donna just complaining because she had, like Christy says, sorry, I don't have any paracetamol. And it's just like this sarky Donna reply about, oh yeah, I've got all this going on and no fucking paracetamol. But as they're like doing this plan and discussing this, like he's right there, Randall, he's hanging around, and he overhears it, so that sets his mind off again. So you see him talk to Donna and apologise and start acting like, okay, can I have a word? I'm really sorry. So does like a pretty good job of starting to act sincere, and the next thing you know, at the end of the episode, like he's got her tied up to the tree and he's got a knife to her, and Jimmy comes along and it's like, whoa, what are you doing now? And that's when he says like new plan. So that's like a cliffhanger at the end of the episode, which is really good. So that was intriguing. And the other big stuff really is Tabitha and her continued thing with Victor. So her and Jade kind of has a Jade style moment because when they're talking about it, he wants to find out more, and he wants to push the issue with Victor, because you've got a few of them in the diner. You've got Julie, you've got Ethan, and then you've got Victor, and they're all like helping out with stuff in there. So Jade comes bursting in, and he just wants to push the issue. It says, "You've not told us everything when it comes to these symbols. Why don't you tell us more?" But once again, a bit like Randall, he's just, even if you want to say, well, maybe this is a fair enough thing to be doing, like, he's just really overly aggressive and a douche, and he pursues him, and Victor doesn't want anything to do with him. He's like really nervous. He's trying to say, I'm not sure there's any more I can tell you or help you with, and like, but Jade just goes about it the wrong way, and Tabitha is like sensitive to this, a bit like Jimmy's more sensitive with him and Randall. Like, Tabitha is the more sensitive one with their parent, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And she has a good line about, "Can you go like either 10 minutes without like being a total asshole?" And then she goes to Victor later on and is more subtle. I mean, anything would be more subtle probably than the way Jade went about it, but she is more sensitive with him and supportive, and this is important to her because she really feels there's a connection here with the kids, and these drawings and what's been going on. And they start to, like, by talking about it, like, he starts to relive memory, that being Victor, and he remembers like a traumatic memory from his childhood, and that is that his mum left him behind in the sour, and she even took his sister. So that's a reveal in this episode that Victor had a sister who the mother took with her, but left Victor shut in the sour. And she said she was going off to see, to a tower to save these children, and there's these all new drawings which Victor finds and shows to Tabitha, and he starts telling her, starts laying things out and saying, like, these drawings are like things from my childhood, and like it's things which my mum described to me, so that's how I came up with these drawings. And Tabitha by the end is like making connections between the tower and like the children, and starting to think that maybe the children she's been seeing need saving from the tower, and that's like a whole connection. So that's pretty solid stuff as well, I've got to say, like moving things forward. And I do quite enjoy like Tabitha and Jimmy going off in different directions and having like their own plots, because they've been linked a lot during this show so far, so it is like sometimes a bit more like intriguing to see them have like conflict, and they're still on the same page sometimes, and like Jimmy does support her a little bit in this episode, but it's just nice to see them all have like each one have their own like big plot, and like moving in a different direction, like taking up a different like game plan. So yeah, that's episode 8 of season 2 from Forest for the Trees. Pretty good episode overall, I think, setting up the final 2. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media, and you can support the channel for just $1 a month at patreon.com/boardnow, and that is where you can get a bunch of like bonus commentaries on TV and movies. You can also get like early access to film and TV reviews. Something I'm planning on starting soon is actually like an unpopular opinion style video, like a regular video on unpopular opinions, and when I get that up and going properly, that's the best place really to find that is Patreon, and that is just $1 a month. As I said, patreon.com/board now if you want to support me, throw a bit of money my way, but keep watching TV. See you guys soon. Bye.